Hi, it's Lilian again. First of all, I want to warn you that this video includes content from one of the last chapters of Tower of God, the 487, the 70th chapter of Season 3, so if you haven't read it yet, you might get spoiled. But anyway, let's meet again for a new lore video on Tower of God where we're going to talk about the last group of the tower that we haven't dealt with yet, a group that is both very well known and very mysterious, whose influence on the tower is gigantic and even surpasses that of Jihad's empire on some points. We're going to talk about the workshop. The workshop, or gongbang in Korean, and sometimes called the Chamber of Creation, the blacksmith's group, or the factory, is, according to non-canon law, an organization founded in the tower by Maxeth, or Mexis in the official translation. According to Maxeth himself, the workshop also exists outside the tower, and no one knows its origins. SIU has actually stated that no one knows the origin of the workshop because the ultimate goal of the workshop is to find that origin. This phrase is in Korean more ambiguous, and can also be translated as, no one knows where any creation comes from, for the ultimate goal of any creation is to find its own origin. His ultimate ambition is therefore to find the order and reason for all creation in the world, and therefore to know how to recreate everything in order to become the god of all creation. If the workshop is an organization known to all, the knowledge that its members hold is very secret. It cannot be given to anyone outside the workshop. This is an absolute law. If a person leaves the organization, his or her knowledge will, by law, be sealed. It is not known how this is possible, but it is probably something similar to the spell concerning the hidden flaw, that erasing from the person's mind all memories concerning the hidden flaw if he or she reveals anything about it. Since it was the workshop that created the hidden flaw, one can imagine that it is easy for them to do such a thing. The workshop only creates objects for those who are worthwhile, for those they deem worthy. This law is applied even to Jihad and the 10 great families. Since the workshop claims to exist in the outside world as well, it is probably respected enough there that Jihad and the great warriors respect its existence and its rules, since they themselves come from the outer world. This merit distribution means that a regular who has climbed many floors has a better chance of receiving an item than one who has climbed fewer floors, and the same goes for rankers. The higher the ranking, the better the chances of getting good items. Another rule of the workshop is that it is strictly forbidden to experiment on human beings. The experiments on Yorayo, Emily, Beta, Kasano, Horyang and Balm are the result of a group that decided to conduct such experiments and keep them secret within the workshop. The workshop is located in the middle area of each floor of the tower. Almost all the objects in the tower are made in this area, but although there is a location on each floor, there are only 7 headquarters, and one of them is on the 30th floor. Once every 5 years, the workshop headquarters on the 30th floor brings together E-rank regulars and holds an item tournament called the Battle of the Workshop. The Battle of the Workshop arc, seen in Season 2, is just one of these battles. In fact, according to SIU, other battles take place on the upper floors, where the other workshop headquarters are located. According to non-canon law, there are 5 known ranks in the workshop: the Great Father, the Great Teacher, the Teacher, and the Disciple. The Great Father is the highest rank, and is reserved for the founder of the workshop in the tower, Maxeth, who is also called the Father of the Workshop. He was already present in the tower before the arrival of Jihad and his companions, and was of vital importance in their ascent. In general, it can be said that everything related to science in the tower comes from Maxeth. He is the creator of extremely important objects such as the pocket, which allows all the inhabitants of the tower to understand each other by translating in real time their words into Maxethian, the standard language most commonly spoken in the tower. That's how influential this guy is. He is also the creator of the white paddle, the only S+ weapon in the tower, the most powerful one, and which is in the possession of Ariehon. Maxeth also created artificial life forms, which we'll talk about next. Oh, and for the record, the name Maxeth was inspired by the name of the French soccer player Philippe Mexis. There is only one person known in the non-canon law who has the rank of father. It is Flux, one of the beings that Maxeth created artificially, and who is also one of the 3 lords of the Empire of Jihad. He is also called the Magician, and no one but Maxeth has ever seen his real body. He is only known through the illusions he creates throughout the tower. He can be considered equal to or slightly above the other 4 children of Maxeth, although the latter could be fathers, since it seems that the Great Teachers can also be fathers. But anyway, let's move on to the Great Teachers. There are 4 known Great Teachers: Max, Mai, Mad, and May. They are all artificial lives created by Maxeth and are considered his children. They are not counted in the RAO rankings, look at the videos I made about them, but their combat abilities are apparently equivalent to high rankers. According to rumors, each of them has a different personality and knowledge, and one of them, contrary to what his title suggests, is a great prankster. Flux is not a great teacher because he left the workshop when he became one of the 3 lords of the Jihad Empire, but he still kept the title of father. One of the functions of the great teachers is to lead the battles of the workshop. By the way, one of these great teachers was mentioned and even appeared briefly in the Battle of the Workshop arc, but the official translation didn't translate it well, so you probably missed it. Then there are the professors, about whom there is not much to say, except that they are like the executives of the workshop, and therefore have a huge influence in the tower. We know, for example, from the non-canon lore, that a test administrator, so someone of the rank of Lero Rowe in Season 1 or Mule Love in Season 2, created a mess with the workshop, and that a professor completely humiliated him. The governor of the floor himself came to apologize to the professor for this incident once the news reached him. And finally, there are the disciples. They are chosen by the professors and officially become disciples of the workshop after a period of training. As their position and title increases within the workshop, disciples receive benefits equal to those of rankers. It is possible for a disciple to be chosen to become a regular, but then they will be expelled from the workshop and their knowledge will be sealed, as I explained earlier. There have also been cases where a ranker has become a disciple of the workshop. In these cases, the ranker is not excluded from the RAO ranking, but only if he or she has become a ranker before joining the workshop. In terms of known members, there are all those I've already mentioned, so Maxeth, Flux, Mad, Max, Mai, and May. There is also Sophia Amai, the assistant researcher on the living ignition weapons experiment, including Horyang, Kasano, and Beta, who was also working on the project to dissolve humans who have become ignition weapons, which this time is more about Ba'am and Emily. She is an illegitimate child of the intermediate tower, or middle area, who was fortunate enough to be intelligent enough to become a researcher in the workshop. Her experiments at the workshop were intended to find a way for other illegitimate children in the intermediate tower, who were not as fortunate as she was, to be able to make it out of the workshop by becoming strong, although she later regretted her actions. Then there's Maddox, the researcher in charge of the experiment on Horyang and Kasano. There is the Daft Punk, Punk and IO, the 2 presenters of the Battle of the Workshop, that will be killed by Madurako at the end of this arc. Punk is the creator of the blood of Tarama that Varagarv possesses, which gives a temporary invulnerability, and IO is the creator of the White Celestial Mirror, currently in possession of Quattro Blitz, of which we only know one of its 3 functions, to seal people by stabbing them. And finally, I'll tell you about a rather special case, that of the blacksmith Ashul Edwaru. We don't know his rank in the workshop, but we know that he is extremely influential. Indeed, he is, according to the non-canon lore, the second most important creator in the tower after Maxeth, and was living in the tower before Jihad and his companions arrived in the tower. He is the creator of the 13-month series weapons, containing half of the key to the 135th floor. He is also, according to the non-canon lore, the author of the book The Weapons of the Tower, of which most of the content is unknown since we only have the introduction of the book. I have already quoted an excerpt in episode 1 of the lore videos on the tower, so I won't read it again, especially since I'm saving it for the next lore videos on the Shinsu and on weapons and items. And then I have to remind you about a group that I already talked about in the 10 Great Families video. I think, even it's not really a part of the workshop, it's the Research Association. The Research Association is a very powerful and exclusive organization created by Po Bidao Gustang and whose members enjoy a great reputation and fame, which only the group of chosen children of the Kun family can match. The members of the association are chosen among the men of the Po Bidao family. Those who fail to become a chosen member of the association are eventually excluded from the family. The requirements for membership in the association are unknown, and it is not known whether female members of the Po Bidao family are allowed to join or whether one must be a ranker to be selected. It is also not known if people who are not from the Po Bidao family are allowed to join the association. Finally, we know that its vice director is called Lightpen. Most of the technology in the tower comes from the workshop. As mentioned before, it is the workshop that created the 13 months and the pockets, for example, or objects and weapons like the blood of Tarama or the white celestial mirror. They also created the bongbong of Endorsi, the Hayura suitcase, the lighthouses, and notably the 3 opera, the 3 most powerful lighthouses of the tower, all sorts of weapons and objects, but also floating ships such as the Archimedes, as well as a whole bunch of other very varied structures, such as the frozen cascade that can be found in the Nest Arc. But among their inventions there is a very special one, the Hell Train. I'm not going to explain you all the details about it because the arc lasted more than 200 chapters, but it was created only in order to help Jihad and his companions in the Ascension, especially with the god of the guardians who taught Jahad how to use the Shinwanru, and it also makes it possible to climb the tower faster. So that means that the workshop is also able to create things that break the rules of the tower, although this was probably negotiated with the floor administrators. Oh, and they also created the hidden floor without really doing it on purpose. Then there's a creation that we just learned about recently, in chapter 487, the 70th chapter of season 3, which is what I'm going to call the hybrid beings. It is a collaboration between Po Bidao Liborik Kun, the current commander of the 4th Corps of the Jahad army, and the workshop, in order to create beings that are half human and half object, machine or animal. All this in order to create beings that are a bit outside the rules of the tower, since these rules only apply to humans. Lopo Bia Yorayo, one of the new divisional commanders of the 4th Corps, is a hybrid between object and human. Since these experiments are most likely older, it is possible that they were used as the basis for the living ignition weapons experiments. So, this is a good time to go back to the creation of the living ignition weapons that I mentioned earlier. As abandoned children of the intermediate tower, Horyang, Kasano, and approximately 100,000 other children were sold to the workshop to serve as guinea pigs for an experiment in order to create a living ignition weapon. Of these 100,000 children, only Horyang and Kasano will survive and become living but incomplete ignition weapons, each possessing half of a creature they call Devil. Then there will be the experiments conducted on Beta and many other children. After enduring many experiments, there were only 5 children left, including Beta. They then asked them to kill each other with the promise that the survivor would be free, and so Beta survived. But this promise of freedom was a lie. In reality, Beta could not survive more than a day without consuming the workshop's drugs. Beta is also in a similar situation to Yorayo, since as long as he is present in someone's lighthouse, he is considered an object and can climb the tower with the others, even though he is not a regular. And finally, there is Baum, about whom we don't know much about the workshop's involvement in the experiments concerning him. All we know is that he was immersed in the wine glass on the 2nd floor, and that he encountered a red light, a devil, as with Horyang and Kasano, and that it is this famous devil that allows the thorn to ignite. Otherwise, I'd like to focus on the case of Emily. Emily was a human who was turned into a living ignition weapon and melted down. Then, his remains were used to create the Emily application. Emily is an application that uses the information it collects from its users to answer questions from other users, like an artificial intelligence that learns by deep learning in a way. As a result, Emily is not an application that just gives you answers to your questions, but answers you according to what it has learned. This is why it is possible to manipulate someone through Emily, by providing false information, as Rachel knows how to do so well. The regulars have become so dependent on Emily that she is now a formidable tool for mass manipulation. Moreover, placed in the hands of an irregular like Rachel, whose behaviors cannot be predicted by the guides, will make the guides and other people who see destiny totally blind. This is what happened several times to Hua-Yun, but it seems that Emily is able to confuse Hua-Yun without Rachel's intervention, which is very strange. Moreover, Emily being still an ignition weapon, we have no idea what would happen if she would ignite. In short, there is still a lot of mystery around Emily. By the way, Emily was in version 1.3 during the Battle of the Workshop arc and changed to version 1.4 with the Hell Train arc. Finally, the name Emily is a reference to the Emily Bell, otherwise known as the King Xiongdok Bell. According to legend, a little girl was melted into the molten bronze of the bell so that the bell would have a perfect sound. Since then, this little girl would emit the Emily sound through the bell to call her mother. Emily meaning mother in ancient Silla, an ancient Korean language. Creepy. The workshop is a completely independent organization, affiliated with no group. They can collaborate with the FUG, the Wolhaeksong, or the Jahad Empire if they want to. One might think that this independence is dangerous to the balance of the tower, given the enormous influence the workshop has, but this is not the case. The workshop has absolutely no interest in the power struggles and politics of the tower, even though Maxeth is very closely related to Jahad and his companions, and that Flux is one of the 3 lords. Unfortunately, because given its influence, its unparalleled mastery of science and engineering, especially in terms of weapons, the workshop could be a great threat to the Empire of Jahad. It is probably the most influential organization in the whole tower, from the fact that Jahad was able to climb the tower thanks to them, to the fact that they are at the origin of an invention such as the pocket, which allows, I remind you, to communicate with anyone by translating in real time what the interlocutor says, without mentioning all the technologies that would not exist without them. In short, all this to say that their influence is just enormous, and that they are in a way the group that shaped, with the Empire of Jahad, the tower as we know it now. That's it for this time. So there was a lot of non-canon lore. So as for the Fug and Woolhike song videos, apart from that, the lore about the workshop is one of the most interesting to me because it's really full of mystery and seems to be closely related to the most fundamental storylines of Tower of God. I'm really looking forward to finding out more about them. And otherwise, we finally finished all the lore about the different groups in the tower, be it the Jihad Empire, the RAO, the Fug, the Woolhike song, or the workshop. A big part of the work has been done, so we can now focus on the more technical part of the Tower of God lore. I'll let you like, share, subscribe and everything, and I'll see you for the next lore video where we'll talk about the Shinsu. And I warn you, it will be complicated.